If Cassie doesn't know that Vanessa exists, why would she show up in an ending that implies Cassie is slipping into madness? See what I did there? Yeah, that joke from the previous video? I'm not joking. I genuinely think that's what's coming next. This video will contain spoilers for the ending of Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach Ruin. The Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach Ruin DLC has 3 endings. Those endings are listed in the files as the neutral ending, the Brazil ending, and the scooper ending. The canon ending to Ruin is still up for debate, but this theory will make the assumption that the neutral ending would be the canon ending. The Brazil ending can still be used to support this theory, or even be considered as a canon ending, but I intend only to use it as supporting evidence. Throughout your playthrough of Ruin, one thing that remains consistent is the Mimic has been tricking Cassie into doing its bidding. This usually results in Cassie being made to remove the security nodes that power the Mexus machine, keeping the Mimic trapped under the Pizzaplex. In certain cases, you also see Cassie being told to deactivate certain animatronics. This point implies that either some or none of the animatronics are under the control of the Mimic. I alluded to a point similar to this in my previous video, saying that I think it's possible that Glitchtrap and the Mimic are separate entities, which I still can't prove, but my mind hasn't fully changed on that. You can check that video out here. And hey, if you enjoy it, why not give it and this video a like? It would really put me over the moon to see others enjoying this kind of content from me. And if you find this theory enjoyable as well, and if you're as interested in FNaF as I am, then I encourage subscribing. I would love to keep doing this, and your support helps to give me a reason to keep at it. But to continue from where I left off, the Mimic not having any of the animatronics under its control, and losing control over Gregory and Vanessa means it no longer has the assistance it desires to do the things it wants, whether that is to continue William Afton's experiments, or some other desire that hasn't yet been explained in the games. That is where Cassie comes in. Why would the Mimic have Cassie deactivate or reboot the animatronics that aren't under its control anymore, other than to prevent them from standing in the way of its plans? When Sun and Moon get rebooted into Eclipse, the first thing he does is try to get Cassie out of harm's way, meaning the animatronics, when rebooted into save mode, revert to a routine in their programming that exists that is meant to protect children.
Happy birthday! Warning, warning! Child in danger! Safety mode active. Little girl, you can't be in here. It's dangerous.
This is a point that is shown in base game Security Breach with Freddy, who after malfunctioning on stage is booted into safe mode, and doesn't bring Gregory to the Mimic, but instead acts as a protector, preventing the other animatronics from harming him.
I told you she was after me.
I said nothing. I will keep you safe. Let us go.
This is also kind of shown when Roxy goes to protect Cassie from the Mimic, but given that she was shown to not be hostile towards Cassie after figuring out she wasn't Gregory, I question whether or not she was ever fully under the Mimic's control. With that in mind, perhaps the Mimic didn't want Cassie to just release it, but to also take control of her, so it had a new puppet to cater to its whims. Some evidence that has already been given to us is that the Mimic does have a history of wanting to control people. It did so with Jeremy from the fictional Silver Parasol Studios and Vanessa in Security Breach. It did so with Gregory as well, based off the story from GGY, but I haven't read the books yet, so I only want to make conclusions from the games right now. However, Gregory having been under the Mimic's control would explain his fear of both Vanessa and the animatronics during Security Breach. The question to look for in future games would be why the Mimic desires to control people. It could be inferred that it has something to do with what it saw in the past, but what that could have been is a mystery for another time. What I want to discuss in this video though isn't why the Mimic wants to control people, rather it's how it goes about doing so. The first confirmed case of the Mimic attempting to control someone is Jeremy, a person known only in name and story. Jeremy was a game developer for the in-game universe fictional game development studio Silver Parasol Games. Help Wanted establishes that the VR game is canon to the in-game universe by saying that Help Wanted was a game that Fazbear Entertainment wanted to make to cover up the killings performed by William Afton in order to restore the name of Fazbear Entertainment. Some flavor text from the AR Nightmare Marionette collectible confirms this by stating it's from that old headset game. During development of the in-universe VR game, Fazbear Entertainment had Silver Parasol begin scanning old circuit boards to help with development, to fast-track things like pathfinding for the animatronics. However, there was something on the circuit boards that Fazbear Entertainment didn't want Silver Parasol to have and quietly took them back. With new information being placed forward with the release of Ruin, I believe one of the boards scanned came from a previous Mimic endoskeleton, which then turned into the glitch trap virus in the game. This virus then took aim at Jeremy, who was a playtester for Silver Parasol, and began to attempt to take control of his mind. After going into the VR game multiple times, and after failing to try to get away from having to playtest the game, Jeremy was fighting a losing battle. After not being able to get away from the virus, he took a guillotine paper slicer and sliced his own face off. Later on, Tape Girl, another developer at Silver Parasol, would replace Jeremy as Silver Parasol's playtester, and she had her time to encounter the virus. She had been logging some of her time and stories about what was happening behind the scenes at Silver Parasol, and when she began to interact with the virus, she decided to try to contain it by attaching it to her logs and separating it within the game. One of the tapes, however, was changed by the virus and gave instructions on how to defeat it, but in reality, it allowed the virus to assume full control over the character we play as, who is heavily implied to be Vanessa from Security Breach. In Security Breach, after defeating Roxy, upgrading Freddy's eyes, and getting past 6 AM, there are some collectible CDs that can be found scattered around the Pizzaplex. Collecting these discs and playing them on a secret CD player within a hidden room shows us therapy recordings from two patients, Patient 46 and 71. Patient 46 was recently revealed to be Gregory, and Patient 71 was revealed immediately to be Vanessa. In Gregory's recordings, he is completely silent and is shown to prefer things like dark, quiet places, dislikes things like overly fragrant flowers, and appears to be disinterested in the things and people around him. He tends to be a bit rebellious, yet smart, as it said he's good with computers. However, he is still shown to like candy, probably to show that, somehow, he's still a kid at heart. It's also stated that Gregory feels sad and scared by the therapist. All of this suggests that Gregory might be suffering from mental health issues, probably due to an implication that his parents are dead, as the escape ending implies that Gregory has nowhere else to go after leaving the Pizzaplex. Vanessa's recordings show that she's had issues with mental health before the sessions took place. It stated that she was doing better once before, but now it's stated that her issues are returning. It's implied that she's already under control at this time, as it's stated that she is communicating with something, which is probably the Mimic. The fact that she is communicating with the Mimic supports something I said in my previous video, and that is that the Mimic doesn't have control over the Pizzaplex or Fazbear Entertainment's information systems. Otherwise, it wouldn't need Vanessa to relay information to it. Vanessa is also shown to be underconfident and feels weak-spirited, as she says,
"Lots of people know more than I do. Sometimes I need to listen."
Which is just more fuel to the fire for the mental health issues case. It's also implied that Vanessa was abused as a child, which would explain her past issues. All of this is to say that both Gregory and Vanessa both were in states of mind that ultimately made them feel weak and their spirits were low. They weren't in a mental state to be or feel strong. But Jeremy from Silver Parasol, on the other hand, has shown zero such implications. When Jeremy had encountered the virus and it began to attempt to control him, he fought as hard as he could, and with no other options, he did the unthinkable and ended his own life. My theory is that after failing to control someone with a strong will, the Mimic changed its tactics and tried to find people who would have a harder time finding the strength to fight back. Someone who was abused as a child, and someone who's facing a tragedy in their life, a tragedy that could have been the result of the Mimic's own hands. Going back to Ruin, it's implied in the game that Cassie's dad is missing based on dialogue flavor text given after picking up certain collectibles. Something that is a tragedy, one that, in the case of the Mimic, can be exploited. But Cassie is shown to not have issues of will throughout the entire game. She has sassy remarks, encounters threatening robots, and faces down dangerous situations to find her missing friend Gregory. This tragedy of losing a parent is something that she has, at least relatively, come to terms with. Her strong will has returned after it was lost. Taking a look at one of the endings of Ruin, The Fredbear cutout ending, known as the Brazil ending in the files, shows Gregory, Vanessa, and Helpy all sitting on a hill, similar to the one in the Princess Quest or Vanny Redeemed ending. The Brazil ending is most likely a result of Helpy, the virtual assistant in the Vanny mask, showing Cassie something that she would want to see before the Mimic catches her, to prevent her from running away. That means, to an extent, this ending is a visual created by the Mimic. The Mimic chose this scene in specific to show to Cassie, a scene where the three characters were together, and if not happy, then at least at a peaceful moment. If the three characters in that ending were at peace, then Cassie might be more at peace seeing that too, lulling her into a false sense of security. But what is shown to us is that it doesn't work. Cassie begins to panic, showing she isn't relaxed, but rather still afraid. To give a little context for my next point, Brazil is a movie made in 1985, where at one point, the main character is about to be tortured, but manages to escape. However, the end of the movie shows that this isn't the case, and the main character just slipped into insanity before being tortured. He begins to slip into madness.
Oh my god!
For those that don't know, or don't remember, back in 2019, Scott Cawthon made a Steam post about the future of FNaF content. One title he mentioned was called FNaF Into Madness. He said that with, quote, "This game was originally going to be a project that I worked on myself, but now it looks like it might be a future project for Steel Wool." In the neutral ending of Ruin, about halfway into Gregory telling Cassie about the situation she found herself in, there is static over the intercom, and Gregory then says he can't risk being followed. He then cuts the elevator lines, sending Cassie in the elevator falling back down to the basement of the Pizza Sim building. The thing that bugs me, much like many others, is that it wouldn't make sense for Gregory to help Cassie escape, only to then immediately send her back down to the doom that awaits her at the bottom. There's a theory going around that the Mimic cuts off Gregory's access to the intercom in the elevator and tries to convince Cassie that her friend wasn't going to save her, and then cuts the elevator lines itself to bring Cassie back down to where it is. This might be the Mimic trying to lower Cassie's spirits and make her weak enough to control by giving her something to be upset over. It's clear that Cassie really does care about Gregory, shown by the cutouts in Roxy's salon, and her desire to find her friend in the now decrepit and decaying Pizzaplex. So, if she thinks her friend abandoned her to save himself, she would be heavily distraught, making her a prime candidate for the type of control the Mimic would place her under. But Cassie has been shown to have a strong will. She isn't one to give up fully after facing hardships. Even after being forced to deactivate Roxy, character she deeply cares for, she still continues on and keeps looking for Gregory in a dark, damp, decaying tunnel system and an old derelict pizzeria. Cassie's strong will fighting against the Mimic's attempt to control her could potentially press her into insanity, into madness, just trying to fight back against her attacker. This would be giving us a dark tone for the next FNaF title. Thank you all so very much for watching this video. It means a ton that you even clicked on it in the first place. I really want to give a massive shout out to AstralSpiff. I got permission to use that clip of his. He's a real cool guy. If you haven't watched any of his content, I would highly suggest it. He's a FNaF speedrunner, and he's got some really funny moments on his YouTube channel. If you enjoyed the video, hey, make sure to leave a like, and if you want to see more content like this, I would suggest subscribing. I'm having a lot of fun doing this right now, and so I think I'm going to keep doing it. I've got some other video ideas in the future that I want to do, but nothing's set in stone. If you have any ideas for stuff you want to see from me, just go ahead and drop it in the comments. Or hey, if you want to leave a comment on your thoughts on the theory, I read all of them. Reading them gives me the opportunity to figure out if there was something that I missed in the theory, or if there's an idea that I could expand further. So don't hesitate to just try to let me know your thoughts. But hey, you know what? I've taken up enough of your time, so I'm going to go ahead and cut the outro here. I hope y'all enjoyed, and I'll see y'all in the next one.